What's up guys, Lvladen here, and today I'm coming at you with a video on my Ret Paladin. I'm going to be teaching you the basic 9.1 rotation and burst rotation. Let's get into it. So 9.1 for Ret, we have a handful of abilities and procs to worry about in our normal rotation. Those abilities are Crusader Strike, Judgment, Templar's Verdict, Blade of Justice, and 3 procs depending on your talent setups and your legendaries, which can include your Final Verdict, Hammer of Wrath proc, your Divine Purpose from your talent proc, and your Art of War from your Blade of Justice proc. Now, the whole idea of Rets in their non-burst rotation is just a priority system involving not overcapping your Holy Power while keeping your Holy Power spenders on cooldown. And I will show you how to do that real quick. Now in PvP, the priority is as follows. Depending on your distance to the target, you're either going to Judge or Blade of Justice first. If you are on top of the target, prioritize your Blade of Justice just because it generates more Holy Power and you have a chance to proc it again. So you would Blade of Justice into a Judgment, into a Crusader Strike, into, depending on the procs, if you're at 3 Holy Power, you get a Blade of Justice proc. You would use your Blade of Justice proc at 5 Holy Power, and then you would press your Final Verdict, or you would press 1 Crusader Strike to get your charges of Crusader Strike rolling into a Templar's Verdict. Now this rotation depends on your procs, right? So you could theoretically proc a Hammer of Wrath on your first Templars, in which case you would not prioritize that over another Judgment or Blade of Justice proc. However, you would prioritize it over a Crusader Strike, and you would prioritize it under a Templars unless you're not at 5 Holy Power yet, in which case go for it. Depending on your conduits, you may be running a Virtuous Command. Don't worry too much about Virtuous Command unless you are already on top of the target or you are bursting. Virtuous Command does require you to be in melee range for it to function. So, for example, Templar's Verdict right here, Virtuous Command goes off. But if I'm all the way back here and I get my Virtuous Command up, it does not, in fact, proc. So once again, I'm just going to run it through real quick. Blade of Justice, Judgment, get a Blade of Justice proc. So Blade of Justice again, we're at 5 into a Templars, 1 Crusader Strike, Templars, another Crusader Strike, oh, another Blade of Justice proc. We're going to wait half a second for Judgment to come back into a Judgment. Templar's Verdict, Blade of Justice proc. Keep 1 charge of Crusader Strike on cooldown. Templar's Verdict, get a Divine Purpose proc. Templar's Verdict, into another Crusader Strike, 1 second, into a Judgment, into Crusader Strike, into a Templar's Verdict, into a Blade of Justice, get another Blade of Justice proc. So we're going to go to 5 Holy Power, into another Templar's Verdict, into a Crusader Strike, another Crusader Strike, into a Judgment, into a Templar's Verdict, get a proc of both. So we're going to prioritize Blade of Justice and then Hammer of Wrath, to a Templar's Verdict. That's more or less your rotation right there. And I know I went over it really fast, but guys, it is just a priority system of not overcapping your Holy Power and keeping your abilities on cooldown in a certain order. Alright, now I'll be going over the first burst rotation, which involves running Divine Purpose, Sanctified Wrath. This build essentially makes your burst rotation nearly identical to your passive rotation. So what I would do if I was running these talents is I would run up, I'd Blade of Justice, get into melee range, Judge, Wings, Templar's Verdict, into a Divine Toll, into a Templar's Verdict, into a Wake of Ashes. If I get a Divine Purpose proc, perfect. Templars, Blade of Justice, Templars, Judgment, into a Hammer of Wrath proc, Templars, and so on and so forth. That is your easiest burst rotation as a Ret Paladin running with Divine Purpose and Divine Toll with Sanctified Wrath. Now it's a little bit different when you're running Seraphim and Final Reckoning. So if you're running Seraphim and Final Reckoning, your burst rotation often happens immediately. For example, if you're fighting another Ret Paladin, what you want to do is get your Seraphim up instantly, get them in a stun, and burst. What I typically do when I'm running these talents is I'm running at the target. Say I have distance right here. I'm running up. I'll Judge into a Blade of Justice, into a Seraphim, Hodge, Wings, Divine Toll, Final Reckoning, into a Templars, into a Wake of Ashes, into a Templars, into a Judgment, into a Blade of Justice if I have it, or a proc, into a Templars, into a Hammer of Wrath, into a Templars. Now that is some of the biggest burst damage you can get out on a player. Most likely, people are going to try and CC you during it, but the first 3 globals, the Divine Toll, Final Reckoning into a Final Verdict, is usually enough to one-shot someone if they do not respond. Now, the reason that you use Divine Toll before Final Reckoning is because it gives you a Pelagos, whatever you guys want to call him, a combat meditation buff, increasing your mastery. It is slightly nerfed in PvP, but it goes for a longer duration. And your Final Reckoning, I have to reiterate this every patch, is only affected by your Final Verdict in your Divine Storm, and if you're running it, Execution Sentence. It only increases your spender damage, not your holy power in general. One thing I did not emphasize as much as I should have in the prior segment was when you're using your Wake of Ashes, you want to make sure you're not going to overcap your holy power. And it does also scale off of your Divine Toll Mastery, because this is radiant damage, which is basically, I believe it is considered light and fire damage. So it does scale off mastery. Other than that, guys, that's about it to the Ret rotation. Once you get it down, it's fairly simple. It's some of the highest bursts in the game, especially if you're getting Ringing and Clarity procs off your Divine Toll. Now, if you guys enjoyed this, feel free to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitch. You can support me down below. Check the description. Appreciate all and every support I get. Guys, I know it's been a tough time for WoW in general. You know, I did see maybe a flicker of light at the end of the tunnel. WoW decided to hire a PvP dev, so that is on their listing right now. And, you know, maybe we'll see some future employee changes. But yeah, that's about it for this video. See you guys next time. Peace.